LED lights that are up on the top of the dashboard. When you move the lever, the corresponding LED will move, telling the driver what position it's in. Now, that may seem complex, but it's very similar to what you'd use with a slot car controller. So we talk about technology coming to racing. Now, slot car technology has made its way to IndyCar racing.
So some adjustments being made to the anti-roll bars, the sway bars in the cockpit.
The anti-roll bar or anti-sway bar, whatever you want to call it, it can be called either thing. When you make it softer, it makes the suspension on all four corners softer, more supple, rides over the bumps and absorbs the road better, and can very often give you more grip, particularly on low-speed corners. Of course, the higher the speed, you need to have the car nice and stiffen up that roll bar. I've seen people actually disconnect those roll bars sometimes and improve the handling.
Well, they used to disconnect them regularly in the rain. Jan Bikus, what do they do in the rain now?
Well, that is what you'd want to do in the rain, is disconnect it. But of course, all these cars started on a dry setup. Interestingly, this has some very slow corners through the festival complex, as it's called, and some of the teams had already disconnected them, even in the dry. What that means is their drivers are no longer available or have available to actually make adjustments during the race. So therefore, you still have to wait until the pit stop to make a wing adjustment or a tire pressure change.
Well, the report from all of the course marshalling stations around this course is that the rain itself has stopped. Now, there's still water, of course, on the racetrack, but it will drain fairly quickly, especially with the help of race cars cutting through any place where the rain may accumulate.
David Coudray moves wide to let Emerson Fittipaldi go down the inside. Coudray driving for Euro Motorsport. We saw him spin earlier on, but he moves aside, lets Emerson pass him into the festival curves. Maybe he can learn something from Emerson as he goes through these slow-speed corners.
Fittipaldi still well out in front of second-place Paul Tracy. Fuel no longer a factor. The rain is, but the change that could come now is as the course dries, Derek, these tires are going to wear very quickly.
They will wear very quickly. It's not dry enough yet, though. But these cars you watch here, immaculately prepared always. Well, one of those men who usually prepares the cars here is Chief Mechanic Richard Buck. Usually works with Paul Tracy. He is not here this weekend. He was off enjoying himself and relaxing and managed to break his collarbone.
What, riding his motorcycle?
Well, or his mountain bike or something, but he's at home in Reading, Pennsylvania, watching the progress of his team cars.
Well, at the moment, his team, the Penske organization, runs first and second, 77 laps complete. Back at Portland International, the Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200. This is the leader, Emerson Fittipaldi, car number 4. It's been 30 laps since his last pit stop. The rain will allow him to go a little bit further before he needs the fuel. Second place car, Paul Tracy, it's been 33 laps since his last stop.
The Chevrolet engine goes through constant development. They're on Gen 4, which is Generation 4 now, the engine management system, which is basically the software, the computer software that controls this complete engine program here. And in fact, some people think that Penske gets all the trick stuff. In fact, Danny Sullivan in Detroit had the latest software in his Chevrolet engine, and he went on to win. So I don't know whether that suggests it was better than everybody else. I don't really think so.
So Jan Bikus, the window for pit stop should open up here very shortly.
That's right, Paul. And what's going to happen is that Paul Tracy will be in first because he was the first person to change tires. What's going to happen is they won't have tires here for Paul Tracy to change. That is because you don't change rain tires because they don't wear out like slicks do. It's not going to do anything. You want to have hot rain tires on there. So what we'll see is that Paul Tracy will pit first. It'll just be a very quick pit stop just for enough fuel to make it to the end. Now, Emerson Fittipaldi, for instance, he can come in at lap 89. They only need enough fuel then for 13 laps. It'll be a time stop, fuel only, very quick. But as we talked about, if the track dries, those who pitted later still have a chance to put on slick tires if they wanted to. Paul Tracy won't do that. First one in.
I assume from what you're looking at, Jan, that the track is not nearly dry enough to consider going to slicks.
No, I don't think so, Paul, but it isn't now for Paul Tracy. But what I'm saying is that it might be for Nigel Mansell or for Emerson Fittipaldi, who waited till later.
Well, of course, we saw the gamble being played the opposite way earlier when they stayed on the wet weather tires. I wonder, in the space of just over 20 laps, whether this racetrack would dry out enough to give somebody on slicks a better chance to make up some position at the end of the race. Right now, as we look out the booth and look at particularly here, I just can't see that happening. I just can't see it drawing up.
Very damp in this area, but take a look. They come off the festival curves now. When they get over toward the backside in the long high-speed areas, then it is fairly dry, but almost all of the braking areas are still damp.
And you can watch Tracy here. It gets light gray. See the light gray patches there? That's where it begins to dry up. I just don't have a feel for whether that would actually dry up. Quick enough or not.
The top three, Fittipaldi, Tracy, and Mansell, have all completed now their 80th lap of the 102-lap scheduled distance. You get a view of Mario Andretti, who runs 6th now. He is a lap behind the leaders. Indication is from the pits now that Emerson Fittipaldi may head into the pits, and they're not sure why. He has a 30-second lead over second-place Paul Tracy.
You can clearly see there the line is drying, but it's very wet offline. We're going to watch, though, to see does Emerson make a stop if he does what he stops for, but there is still moisture coming down on some parts of the racetrack.
We watch second-place Paul Tracy, so Emerson now working through the festival corners and into the sweeper curves. So if he's going to come in, there he is. He should be there next lap around. Radio communication going back and forth as Emerson closes up very tightly to Arie Luyendyk. Jan Beekes? Jan, are you there?
Talking about Arie Luyendyk and we're also talking about Emerson Fittipaldi, is that he called in on the radio and said that he has either a tire going down or a flat spotted tire. So the team rolled out the tires, were all ready, but then he didn't come in. So they're now trying to work out on the radios if he's going to be coming in. If he comes in now, he'll still make it to the end of the race. The reason that he would, and he has now continued down the front straightaway again, is because he has a suspect tire. Right now he's kind of feeling it out. He'll wait till lap 89 if it turns out a tire wasn't going down.
Doesn't seem to be affecting him. You're looking forward toward him from the camera mounted on Scott Brayton's car.
The only way he could get a flat spot is locking up one of those wheels under braking. We didn't see him do anything like that. If a wheel weight comes off, it can give you such a severe vibration sometimes that you actually feel as if you may have a flat spot. It's obviously not enough to trouble Emerson at the moment to actually make an emergency pit stop.
Fittipaldi now is having his lead nibbled away just a little bit with his concern over the past few laps with his tires. He is now 27 seconds ahead, so 5 seconds have come off on the Tracy closure with Emerson Fittipaldi. Watch this one. This was a little bit earlier. You want to know how wet it is out there?
See how quickly it happens. He lost, did a 180, went backwards, and then straightened the car up again, kept the engine running, so he's back on the racetrack.
Gary Gerould.
Well, Paul, you wonder about the mind games that are played on pit road. Take a look right over here through the crew. I don't know how well you can see it, but there are slick tires up on the wall in the Nigel Mansell pit, and they are preparing for him to come in. They want to make a front wing adjustment. He'll make the call as to whether or not they gamble and go to the slicks. One other thing compounding their situation, Willie T. Ribb's radio frequency bleeding over onto theirs. They had to send a crew member down to talk with Derek Walker and say, please call your driver by name. We'll call our driver by name, because Nigel thought that his crew was calling into the pits when in fact Willie T. was being summoned. Strange day in Portland.
Sometimes it's not so great to be totally high-tech, is it?
There you go. He's now called Dr. Nigel Mansell, by the way. He accepted a doctorate from a university in Birmingham last week during a trip back with his family back to his homeland. So now he is a Dr. Nigel Mansell.
Well, the doctor runs in third. He continues to chase Paul Tracy, who's 30 seconds ahead of him. But now Tracy is able to nibble away a bit on Fittipaldi. We're back in a rainy but somewhat drying Portland. The Budweiser G.I. Joe's 200 round 7 of the PPG IndyCar World Series for the IndyCars. Emerson Fittipaldi leads. Nigel Mansell runs in second place, and the reason for that is that Paul Tracy came in and made his final stop, and in doing so, he decided that it was not something that he should do. Something that he should not do is to change tires. Now here is Nigel Mansell in. Will he go over to the slicks? That's a very real possibility, Gary Gerould.
Indeed it is, Paul. Tommy Wirtz waves him into position. Nigel was on the radio, said he wants the dry tires. Here he is. We'll see if they change it. The air guns begin to chatter. He gambled earlier because he stayed out on the slicks, almost the longest of any driver. But here he is now going to the slicks, the first man to do so. It's still very wet out there. Will this pay off or will it backfire for the points leader?
So a gamble and a great one for Nigel Mansell as he comes back into the fight.
Well, this is what you call going for it all, because it is such a risk now to go onto slicks. But you see the race leader, Emerson Fittipaldi here. This will be a great judge for Mansell, just how quickly he is going relative to somebody on wet weather tires. Easily goes down the inside, Fittipaldi does. But a big gamble by Mansell. It's the reverse of what he tried to do earlier. He's gambling that the line will dry significantly between now and the end of the race.
And of course that comparison right there doesn't really tell, because he also came out